Welcome to the show. All Elite Wrestling presents Double or Nothing live Saturday, May 23rd at 8 p.m. Eastern. Buy now on VR Live.
So how are you? How are you doing?
I'm very good today. because mainly.
Oh no, you still have it. It hasn't left.
Yeah, I'm not giving this back. So.
Wow, that's really bold of you. So what made you decide to go ahead and just take it from him?
I mean, in chaos comes opportunity, and in order to ensure that I was given a title match, I decided to take something that was very important to Mr. Moxley and very important to the wrestling industry, and it worked out very well for me.
We spoke to Jon Moxley yesterday, actually, and he said that
I'm sorry about that.
He said that was actually one of the biggest signs of disrespect that he's ever seen, to just take his title from him and like you said, to kind of force his hand into giving you a match.
Right.
You and Moxley have had a long history. Can you kind of take us through what you know about Moxley? Like I mentioned, I mean, you guys have known each other for close to a decade now.
And Moxley knows, because I explained this to him, that it's just business, nothing personal against him. He kind of made it personal towards me last week when he threatened my career and livelihood, said he was going to make my career over before it started. So to me, that puts a little bit more of a personal spin on it. I've been, I would say wrestling, but more fist fighting with him since 2010. We've been in Evolve, we've been in CZW, we've been in WWE, we've been in now here. We're going to do it on Saturday in AEW. And being across the ring from him, like I said, I do respect him. And I know exactly what I'm going to get myself into. I know he's going to tear across the ring. He's going to punch me in the face. And, I mean, that's going to probably snap me out of whatever slumber I might be in that day. But instantly I'm going to return fire, and the violence will probably get to a level that my wife's not comfortable with, because she told me before I left the house the other day, she said, "You and Moxley scare me together." And I said, well, so she knows what we're getting into, I know what I'm getting into, and he knows what we're getting into here. But like I told him, it's just business, and I would prefer if he didn't threaten my career.
Absolutely. So typically when we see new members enter an organization, new roster members, it usually takes them a little while to go for the championship. But you decided right away to set your sights on Jon Moxley.
Right. So I was ranked in the top 5. Moxley, the week before I orchestrated an attack on him, put a mark on his head. He said, "I know I'm going to have a target on my back." Looking at the top 5, I knew none of those people were in position to challenge at the current moment. They're all very busy with other things. And I just knew that the climate was right and the timing was right, and just decided to take it upon myself and go out there and try to make him accept a challenge, which was far easier than I assumed it would be with him.
When you became a free agent and you were on the market, you were one of the most coveted free agents out there. What made you decide to join AEW?
Man, so I have a lot of friends there. I have a lot of people I've been in contact with. Mainly, it's an opportunity to make a difference in an industry in the long run. When I'm 70 and I'm looking in the mirror, I'm the only guy that's going to be looking back at myself, and I didn't want to have any regrets. So I didn't want to be sitting on the sidelines for the rest of my career. I wanted to wrestle when I still could, and I knew AEW offered me that opportunity, and it seemed to be a perfect fit. And so far, it's been a wonderful place to work. So, and I mean, I can't complain. I was the main event of Dynamite last week. I'm the main event of the pay-per-view this Saturday. So, I mean, I'd say it worked out pretty well.
No complaints. Since joining AEW and joining forces with the Dark Order, you guys have scared a lot of people. One of those people being Tony Schiavone, who, for those who aren't aware, was very confused and scared in an interview you had with him recently. After, I'm not going to say what the word was, but he referred to the Dark Order as something that you didn't like.
Yeah, the thing was, Tony was explained some very simple rules before the interview started. And there was a lot of stuff that was cut out of that interview, which, I mean, I'd like to take up with the AEW people because I expressed a lot of feelings in that interview. But Tony was given very, very simple rules. And, I mean, what they showed was, and I didn't know my mic was still on, so that was a bit of a faux pas on my part. But, again, Tony was given simple rules, and he didn't follow them. So, yeah, that's all I can really say about that.
That's fair. That's fair.
And so, I mean, as for scaring him, he put it on himself. And so I would say Tony's the only one to blame in this situation. I never threatened him. I never physically harmed him. Didn't come anywhere near him, honestly. So I don't know what he was scared about.
Tonight on Dynamite, Jon Moxley will be taking on number 10. What can you tell us about number 10 that fans might not know about him yet?
Number 10 is a supreme athlete. He was probably going to have a professional career at some point in some professional league. He had a couple different options. He had a few injuries, had maybe a bad breakup with a girlfriend, which might have affected some of us in our past. And he kind of lost his way, took to some vices that weren't healthy for him. And honestly, he just filled out the application. It came upon my desk. And I looked it over and instantly was enthralled at what I saw. Interviewed him, went through the process, and he's been doing a few things in AEW before, not finding the success that he should have been, and now he's been undefeated under my wing. So I always like to say results speak for themselves.
What went into the formation of the Dark Order? What made you decide to create the group?
So the Dark Order is an organization that enriches lives. I've always been a fan of helping others, and I'm always a fan of strength in numbers, and especially going into an environment like AEW where you have the elite, which is a group of friends that watch each other's back. Sometimes, they don't always get along. But I always thought it was important to have someone there to watch my back and to watch somebody else's back, and also to help someone who was maybe a bit less fortunate than myself. And we enrich lives. We turn losers into winners. And I've known Evil Uno, and I've known Stu Grayson for the better part of, I want to say 15 years. So it's always been there. We've wrestled many independent shows together. I know what they bring to the table. I know their level of creativity. I know their level of competence inside the ring. And they've been wonderful. Hopefully after this pandemic clears up a little bit, we can get them back in the ring and we can be full force, because that's been kind of an issue since we started. We've only been able to telecommunicate, and I'd really prefer to be in ring with those two right now.
For sure. So obviously fans see the Exalted One. They see Mr. Brodie Lee on Dynamite, week in and week out, wreaking havoc. But what they might not know is that, outside of the ring, you're a huge hockey fan.
I am.
Can you talk about your love for hockey and how that's
So I'm a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, and in 92-93, the Maple Leafs went on a run towards the Stanley Cup, and they got to the conference finals against Wayne Gretzky and the Los Angeles Kings. So I'd always grown up, a huge Wayne Gretzky fan. 93, I was watching the games. We never had cable growing up, so we would go to my uncle's house, and he had cable, and we would watch the Maple Leafs games, and the conference finals were on, and I fell in love with the Maple Leafs at that time. I fell in love with Doug Gilmour and Wendell Clark and all the guys that were on that team at the time. And I grew up playing hockey. I played hockey for, 18 years. I played with Brian Giunta, who was a former NHLer when I was a child. So it's always just in my blood. It's kind of a first love of mine before I found pro wrestling, and yeah, I love it.
That's a massive individual playing hockey. I can't even imagine that. What position?
Yeah, on skates I'm about 6'10", 6'9", 6'10".
I'm guessing there weren't many your size that were doing.
No, but the issue became eventually that everyone wanted to fight me. And just because, you always walk into a bar and you pick the biggest guy in the room, and I was always on the ice, of course, the biggest guy in the room, and I'm not one to turn down a fight. So that's kind of what it became for me. So,
okay, well, now I need to know what your best fight story is in hockey.
Say that again?
What was your best fight story in hockey?
Oh, my God. I don't really have any specific ones. I jumped off the bench a few times when my father was the coach, which was probably not the best idea, just because once I was disciplined by the league, I was also disciplined at home. So kind of a foolhardy expedition on my part, but I was a little bit hot-headed then. So when I saw someone in peril on the ice, I always was the first one to jump up and jump to their aid.
So who's your favorite all-time player, and who's your favorite current player?
Doug Gilmour, number 93 from the Leafs, who also went to a bunch of other teams. But the number 93 kind of remains synonymous with me. I use it for a lot of things. And he was just kind of a hero of mine growing up. Just the way he played. They called him Killer on the ice. So I kind of saw that as something very cool. And nowadays, probably have to say Austin Matthews. Being home better part of the last regular season since it was going on, I got to watch in the last 4 years of his career. I've been able to watch a lot of the games live, and just the way the skill level that he operates at is unbelievable.
Crosby or Ovechkin?
Ovechkin.
Okay. All right.
I always lean towards the more physical player, and not to take anything away from Sidney Crosby. He's probably top 5 greatest of all time. But Ovechkin, the edge he plays with, the physicality he plays with, and just the way he snipes from that spot on the power play is it's beautiful. So, and it was wonderful to watch him get a cup. It was nice to see him go through Pittsburgh to do it. And yeah, I'll always go with Ovechkin.
I know you're a Rochester native. I'm sure that has in part to do with your love for hockey. What can you tell us about Rochester? What are some of your favorite things to do at Rochester?
Rochester has a lot of good, bad food, I guess you would call it. You could put weight on very easily in Rochester. They got a lot of good beer. Genesee Brewery's from there. It's the home of the garbage plate, which is 2 hamburgers on top of mac salad and potatoes. So it's covered with onions and mustard and whatever you want on it. And so, yeah, it's just a lot of really great bad food. There's a lot of good wings up there. So, yeah, mostly the food, but also just the general vibe of people. It's a very different vibe of blue-collar person there, and I love it there.
As a professional athlete, it sounds like that wouldn't be the ideal place.
It was not the best case scenario for my career at times. It became a little bit difficult to stay away from the foods. So, yeah.
Nice. Are you ready for some fan questions, Mr. Brodie?
Absolutely.
All right, let's do it. See what we got. Okay, I think this is a Rochester-specific question. What is your go-to Dinosaur barbecue order? Does that sound familiar?
Yes, absolutely. Dinosaur barbecue is a staple. Me and my wife used to go there on dates all the time. We used to order takeout from there all the time. A staple of my diet. I always would go half chicken with a side of mac and cheese and a side of chili.
Nice.
The AK chili, as they call it.
What is the best grocery store, and why is it Wegmans?
Another Rochester question. Wegmans is by far the greatest grocery store in the world. I live in Tampa now, so Publix gives it a pretty good run for its money. Publix sushi is very, very good, so that gives it a bit of a run for its money. But in total, Wegmans, they have great subs. They have everything you could ever imagine under one roof. It's a wonderful grocery store. I know it's been kind of moving down the coast. I think it got to North Carolina, but it hasn't ventured any further. But Wegmans is a number one.
I can just tell about your love for Rochester because you just blow up. Mr. Brodie Lee lighting up right now. Who has the best beard in hockey?
Say that again?
Who has the best beard in hockey?
The best what in hockey? I'm sorry.
Very fine. The best beard. Beard.
Oh, best beard in hockey. Brent Burns by far. I actually got to meet him. We have a couple of pictures together with me, him, and Joe Thornton, who have very similar beards and are just a couple of very genuine, good people. Yeah, so Burns and Thornton, although I believe Joe Thornton, Jumbo, just shaved his on a TikTok video with his daughter. So that was slightly disappointing, but I understand during quarantine you get a little wild. I was able to hold on to mine thus far. Maybe someday you'll be able to see the baby face underneath here, but not yet.
Okay, well, next question is, who has the better beard, you or Joe Thornton?
Well, now me, because he shaved his.
Yeah. Okay, all right. There we go. Switching back over to wrestling, what is your favorite wrestling match of all time?
That I participated in or just watched?
We can do one of each.
Okay, so watching was Funk vs. Flair 1989, their I Quit match, just a different level of intensity, passion, and violence. I'm a huge Terry Funk fan, and that I could watch that match every day of the week. Personally, I think this Saturday will become one of them. But for the past, I believe Dolph Ziggler, I don't remember what year, maybe 2015, in Cleveland, a ladder match for the Intercontinental title. We didn't really plan on getting as violent as we did, but we went out there and put on a show for his hometown crowd, and unfortunately my wife and family were in the third row, and she was not very pleased with me. Me and Dolph both went home with staples that night, and yes, she almost jumped the barricade to smack me in the head.
Wait, why? Because she was so upset with you?
So I did a thing where I saw Dolph Ziggler getting up with a ladder on the outside of the ring, and I decided that I should dive on him. And instead of hitting the ladder and him, he just moved out of the way, and I hit the ladder and came down and nearly broke my arm. And she was none too pleased with me from her seat in the third row.
It almost sounds like your wife in general doesn't approve of your career.
So she knows what she got into, and she's been very supportive. But at the same time, she'll be the first one to call me out. She'll be very honest with me, and if I do something incredibly dangerous or get into a situation that she knows is not going to be a good thing for me, she'll let me know.
How'd you start in wrestling?
Way back in Rochester, my cousin and his friends had just rented a ring. Actually, one of those friends now works for AEW, which is strange. So it's been a weird circle of life. But yeah, he rented a ring. He said, hey, do you want to come out and try it out? We knew nothing about pro wrestling, but we knew we were fans. We kind of had an idea of what we wanted it to be, and went out there and had fun and never looked back. And that was, my God, 21 years ago.
That's awesome. What hockey player would make the best wrestler?
That's a great question. Probably Ty Domi. He's an old enforcer of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he had a bit of showmanship to him, but he was about 5'10", and he had fists of steel. And he would fight anybody on the planet Earth at any time, and he had maybe a few screws loose. He at one point beat Bob Probert in a fight and did the championship signal like he won the heavyweight belt. So I think he's almost tailor-made for professional wrestling.
That's great. What's your go-to music when traveling?
Music?
Yes.
That's a tough one. I go anywhere from Foo Fighters to Lil Wayne to Drake to, lots of stuff. I usually do for traveling, it's a lot of true crime podcasts.
Okay.
I get a little too deep into those and then get paranoid. So, but usually it's a podcast, either hockey or true crime or a lot of Lil Wayne and Drake.
That's awesome. What was your favorite Lil Wayne song and your favorite Drake song?
Oof. That's a great question. I don't know if I have one. I usually just hit shuffle.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's all good.
So I'll be honest. I'll skip some of the slower ones, and I prefer his more in-your-face, harder style.
Nice.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself a year from now in AEW?
Well, I could just grab this. Probably this picture will be synonymous with what I'll be doing a year from now. It looks great in the light too. That's unbelievable. That's clearly my main goal, is to be a recognized official world champion. That's been a goal for a long time. So that's my goal. That's where I see myself. That's all I can say, really.
That's awesome. And we're getting another Lil Wayne question. You like Carter 3 or his more recent stuff?
Say it again.
Do you like Carter 3 or his more recent stuff?
Carter 3.
Okay.
The older stuff definitely is more my style. Although, again, like his newer stuff is not bad by any stretch of the imagination. And like I said, I'll go in and out of things where the shuffle will go from new to old, back and forth. So it's a lot of the stuff in the gym, too, that it just certain things will hit at certain times. So it's hard to say preference-wise what I prefer.
I know you mentioned that your wife is a little concerned about you and Moxley getting together. Whatever her feelings been ahead of Saturday.
Yeah, so she stated that she was afraid of what would happen. She won't be there just due to the crowd, so she'll probably be watching at home. So I'm assuming I'll have several text messages waiting for me, or maybe a missed call waiting for me after the match. Yeah, I don't know. I'm afraid. You know, I always like to say that a successful marriage has a bit of fear in it. So I think I'm afraid of what she's going to say, so I think that's very healthy.
I know it's not ideal, obviously, not having her ringside, even though she is terrified of what's going on. How weird has it been performing or not competing in front of people?
Yeah, so March 18th, I should say, was supposed to be my debut, which was supposed to be in Rochester, New York, which was serendipitous in the way it worked out and almost surreal. And it was too good to be true, obviously. I mean, now. And I was 1 week away. They did Salt Lake City on March 11th, and Rochester was the next date they had. And I was supposed to debut that day. So we had tickets booked. We had flights booked. The whole family was going to be there. I was going to rent a box. Like, it was going to be a really great time for a lot of people. And, of course, it didn't work out. But readjusting to it, Tony told me, if you don't want to debut, we'll wait. You know, we can hold off and wait till people come back. And the thing was, then we didn't know when that would be. And I'd been a caged animal for almost 8 months at that point, where I had done nothing, and I was ready to be a professional wrestler again. So there was no hesitation on my part to come to Jacksonville and debut. So it's been a bit of adjustment. And again, it's been surreal to be in front of no people, because I think that's what pro wrestling's based on. But at the same time, we're working for an audience of a television show. We're working for an audience of internet people, and now we're working in front of our peers. And the exception and the being put over by them is a big part of my career. So
we're seeing a lot of comments calling you one of the most underrated wrestlers currently. Who would you say are additional underrated wrestlers of all time?
Oof, man. I don't know if I like to go with Fit Finlay, just because I don't know if he was underrated. I mean, everyone knew he was great, but he was never at the top of the cards where I think he could have been. And I learned a lot from Fit while in WWE, and he was a wonderful influence on me, both coming up and then getting to work with him. One of my last independent matches in Binghamton, New York, I wrestled against Fit, and it was a learned experience. And then he came back to WWE once I was up on the main roster. And so, yeah, I guess him or William Regal also, like, these are two guys that could go with anybody on the card and give you an entertainment match. Just maybe didn't get their world championship due.
Last question for you. This Saturday at Double or Nothing, you against Jon Moxley for the AEW World Championship. What is it going to take to defeat Jon Moxley?
I mean, I think – oh, man. I mean, I know what that's going to take because I've done it before. I think the better question will be, what is it going to take to defeat me? Because I'm the one in possession of the title. I'm the one with more to lose, I think, in this situation, because I'm the one coming into AEW out of nowhere, and I'm the one that has to prove to lots of people, not only the fans, but to my family, and the one that looks in the mirror, I have to prove it to myself that I do belong in this slot in the card, and that I do belong. Hold on. That I do belong in the annals of the records, holding on to this. So, yeah, I think I have a lot more to prove than Mr. Moxley on Saturday, but again, I always know what he's going to bring to the table, and I do respect that, and I look forward to it very, very much.
Should be an incredibly entertaining match. Again, Double or Nothing this Saturday at 8 p.m. Order on BR Live if you haven't already. Mr. Brodie Lee, thank you so much. This was a wonderful
Thank you, man.
talking to you about everything.
Have a blast. Appreciate it.
Thank you. You have a good one.